is enough, and it's time for a change.
Hi, this is Mayfield Philipps. I was just interviewed by Keith Andrew, and pleased to share my experiences with him and with his audience, and look forward to coming back and talking some more sometime.
For people who want to know what is the Keith Andrew Network, the whole point of my talk show is to show you that even with having a learning disability, I can still amount to something. And at the same time, I'm able to turn myself into an example for people out there dealing with any types of learning disabilities and disabilities to never give up and prove people wrong. Prove to them that labels do not dictate who you are and who you're going to be. To prove them, I still amount to something. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Keith Andrew, and you're watching the Keith Andrew Network, available on YouTube, Twitter, LinkedIn, and all social medias. If you're watching, definitely leave a comment, because I would love to interact with you, or guests would like to interact with you. Follow both of us on Instagram. Our information is in the description box. Follow and support our great guest who was nice enough to be on this wonderful talk show and to support people with disabilities. As you heard from the introduction, he already introduced himself, so we're going to jump right into the hard-hitting questions. We have 15 uncensored questions, no cards up the sleeve. And to be fair, you can throw back any questions you want to make. So, normal conversation, make a new friend out of it. So, with that being said, let's have fun. So, first question I want to ask you is, what attracted you to begin your acting career?
What attracted me to begin? I think it was realizing that in all of my years in business and doing presentations, it's a lot of performance. It's a lot of performance, and you're having to deal with your different audiences, whether it's people who report to you, people you report to, customers. It's like show business. And then living here in New York City, I started doing some extra work, and last fall got to work for a couple days on a movie that's coming out next year with Ryan Reynolds. And I got to be an extra working fairly close to him. And it was a real blast. And I said, screw this business thing. I want to be an actor and model. So yeah, having fun with it.
No, absolutely. And that's what it's all about. If you have the heart and passion, if you can feel, if you have a pulse, if you have a heartbeat, do what makes you happy. In the hell, everyone else can go to hell, but say, you know what? He's not going to mount to something. He likes talking BS. He's entering a wink, wink, woke society. He's entering a world of, he has no idea what he's going to expect, what kind of it's going to blow back on him. There's so many, excuses that people would throw at you. Even my own family says, you have no idea what you're getting yourself into. You're not ready. You tell people you read and learn at a fifth grade level. You're on the spectrum of being retarded. How are you supposed? How can I follow in your footsteps? Be a model, be an actor. You can't read. But for 10 years, 10 and a half years, 1,052 episodes, day in, day out, 24/7, eating shit, not actually, because that's really disgusting, but, eating shit and proving to people, look at what I can accomplish. I don't have a BA. I don't have a bachelor's. People say I have a BA and BS because I like to talk. But look at my body of work and everything that you accomplish. And to all those naysayers, you, my friend, are a true inspiration.
Thank you.
So with that being said, the next question I want to ask you is, what is the biggest challenge you want to make in your acting career?
was the biggest challenge I want to make in my acting career? Please explain to me what you mean by that.
With everything that well, it was kind of like a two-part question. The first part is, what is the biggest challenge that you want to change about your acting career? And what do you want to change about the career? So what was the
Oh,
challenge of starting it and then changing it? You mentioned you are an actor. So do you want to stay as an actor, or do you want to change that and do something else?
well, I'm really at the beginning of this career. I've already started writing, so yeah, I've got other talents I want to explore. A friend of mine who was an actor, say 40 years ago, um, he's he jokes with me constantly. He says, "Oh, so you want to be an actor? Now you're going to be a writer. Next thing I know, you're going to want to be a director." And I said, "Yeah, of course. There's plenty out there to do." So I kind of want to get a taste of it all. But there's things that I've been working on, in fact, writing for years that I would like to bring to fruition. And at the same time, I also started writing something else. The thing before was a musical. Um, Now I've started writing a TV show um, that just it's a good outlet for me and helps me explore what's out there to do.
You're right, and I can relate to that because see, 2004, 2005, Almost Famous had a big impact on my career. Since then, I wanted to see. I was in high school at that point, so that was my sophomore to senior year when I worked over at a retail store.
Hmm.
Um, 2007, 2008, I wanted to go on the road, as with a wrestler or on the band. And I always imagined being on the tour with Rush or going on tour with WWE Women's Champion Kansas Michelle. And the point is being on the road as a roadie, and that's always seemed interesting.
Hmm.
But looking back at it, it wasn't realistic. And I kind of figured do something a little more stand so because you mentioned you're a roadie and that's great, but being a talk show host with a disability, well, that's something. I mean, being a roadie with a disability, all right, yeah, sure, whatever. But entering the business in another way of knocking down doors, that's a better way.
Right.
If that makes any sense.
No, certainly. It certainly does. That you're not just using talent, you're also putting your face out there and your identity out there.
No, I agree. It's always good to be yourself because if you put a mask on, people are going to see right through you.
Right.
So this one's pretty interesting because you mentioned you worked with a couple of famous people, and we're going to get to that in a couple of minutes. But what are some of the best advice you have ever gotten?
Best advice that I've ever gotten. Um,
For me, my friend, Scotty, former ECW wrestler, he said to me, Keith, it's enjoy the journey. It's not about the destination, it's about the journey.
right. Um, and I would say that the advice like that was um, I had a he was actually never an actual teacher of mine, um, but a man named Bill Duncombe. He was when I was in what fifth or sixth grade, he was a physics teacher at the uh, high school, and he was also um, leading science and math programs and heard about me that I was advanced and took an interest in me and kind of helped um, move me along academically. And he he left the U.S., went to work for the Philippine government in bringing their um, high school and college science programs up to a level, but then he got tired of it and went to visit a Buddhist monastery in Japan, and he didn't leave there for what was that, about 2.5 years. And yeah, his advice really was just follow what feels right. It's don't get caught up in everyone else's expectations of you. I mean, for instance, Bill, for all anyone thought, he was never involved with anyone. Everyone just kind of assumed that he was gay, and he had followed the early different early movement figures back in the 60s and 70s, but then in the 80s, he met a woman while he was at this monastery. She traveled around doing kind of helping with housekeeping and whatnot, but she kept herself, her haircut and such, that she blended in with these men. They hit it off and they married. No one saw that coming, but it delighted him no end to find this person that he could settle down with and, was a true partner to him. So yeah, it's just follow what feels right in your heart.
No, you're right. And now the next one I want to ask you, actually, let's stay on the subject.
Mhm.
Now, for people who are maybe straight or gay, it's a couple of years, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, people would be ashamed of that. Here on the Keith Andrew Network, we don't discriminate. We support people. In one of my wrestlers I grew up watching was Pat Patterson, and he was the very first person who happened
Mhm.
to be gay, was the very first WWF Intercontinental Champion. And back he came out, I think, about late 2000s or 2010s. So with that being said, in the industry, do people see that in a different light? Because back in the day, you would never say that because you would pretty much castrate your career.
Mhm.
Do you think now that's kind of gives you an extra extension, if that makes sense?
Well, it's just another facet of who people are. And we recognize that asking people to hide part of themselves impedes the fullness of their life and their ability to, in the arts, bring forth really good performance. Um, so I think that um, it's not an issue. Um,
No, I agree. Look at some of the great actors from the Big Bang Theory,
right, Jim
Jim
Parsons.
Parson. He's a fantastic actor. You look at I'm gonna butcher his name, but his TV show was White Collar, or the one who did Neil.
Hmm.
Another fantastic actor. But you get labels. It's like, oh, he happens to be
Right.
gay. He happens to be disability. People like to put labels on you, but the point is, if people can connect with you, it really doesn't make a difference.
Right. It really doesn't make a difference. And when you talk about connecting with you, um, I came out almost, yeah, next year in November, it'll be 40 years. And it's I have all these people um, in my life. I mean, I'm sure um, everyone was kind of waiting for me to come out. Um, I had been out to myself. I had had a boyfriend when I was in middle school, and so uh, it's and then when you look at the professional world, it doesn't make a difference really anymore. And I mean, and then looking at the military, where uh, that just blows me away to see that. Um, so yeah, I just think in the entertainment world, it's really um, I think it's an asset to have that sense of difference with the mainstream of population, that you can have empathy for people who are different and the like.
And if I may, and if this is a touchy subject, I do
Mm-mm,
apologize.
mm-mm, not at all.
I want to
Uh,
ask you a hard-hitting question, if that's okay with you.
sure.
With everything going on in today's world, and today's world is completely batshit crazy. We can get to that in a couple of minutes. Uh, we can start with Trump, but it isn't the fact that hashtag gay. It isn't. That's not the issue. All right, that's not the media. The media likes to scare people. Here's an example. You watch the 10 o'clock news, you watch the 11 o'clock news. You have rape, murder, killings, stabbings in sports and whatever. So the people who I interviewed, like, oh, because they want to scare people. Oh, there's a stabbing in Brooklyn. Don't go to the city. Or Manhattan's doing this. Don't go to Manhattan. So with the I know I'm actually throwing two questions at you at once, I apologize. But the first
No.
one is, you know, the media is to blame. And people are like, well, Keith, you're in the media. Yes, but I'm not an asshole about it. But I'm having a normal conversation. I'm not trying to scare people. Do
Hmm.
you think the media causes more problems than anything else?
Well, I there are people in the media, right, when they want to be sensationalistic and feed on those fears. Yes, there are. I wouldn't say the media as a whole, but there's different uh, areas. I mean, it's funny living in New York City, and when I tell people, "Oh, I live in East Harlem," they've got all these preconceived notions about what it's like here, and it's like, no, there's not. Yeah, there are unhoused people who live on my block, who sleep on the sidewalks. There are neighbors who take care of these people. Um, there are neighbors as much as someone who lives in a house down the block. Um, and it can be lively, it can be loud, but I haven't felt unsafe at all. Um, so, I mean, part of that's just, kind of the way I look, the way I carry myself. But yeah, I haven't felt that. And so when I hear people or read stuff online of people, oh, New York's so dangerous. Yeah, stuff happens, but you know what? Actually, the most dangerous cities are down in the South.
Yeah.
If if you go by, if you weight everything by population, um, so yeah.
No, I mean, all you hear, it's, like today on the news, for an example, some idiot we had a pet alligator and released it
Hmm.
in New Jersey. Probably got it off the black market, or probably went hunting and say, oh, through
Right.
this egg, we'll took an alligator egg. But there's other people like a couple months ago, you had someone standing, oh, subway surfing. That's another stupid trend.
And but that's been going on forever. That's been going on for as long as there's been a subway. You know, particularly kids have been doing stupid shit like that. So it's not new. It's not new. Um,
What about the guy who stood on top of a bus with a machete or a machine gun or whatever it was?
I didn't hear about that one,
Oh, that
but
was a couple months. That was a couple months ago. It's like you're living in a Mad Max world, but that's exactly what I'm saying. It's the media, it's Fox,
right,
CNN. They will tell you things, and people like in other countries say
right,
that's not even true. I've been to the city; it's nice, but you
right.
watch. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, no, you're absolutely right. And I mean, I've been um, I've traveled in Africa, in Kenya and South Africa, and some other smaller countries, and in Asia. It's what we've got going on. Those places aren't as scary as people make them out to be. Um, it's just, people are living their life, and it's a different life than we're accustomed to here. But you realize when you travel that there's a sense of goodness that you find among people, and a sense of trying to take care of strangers. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of an age-old um, practice of you watch out for travelers and for strangers. So I always try to do that here when I see people. Um, Part of me, from growing up in the DC area, I really don't like tourists. I despise tourists because they get in your way. They don't know what they're doing. I try not to be like that when I'm a tourist. But when I see people who are really lost on the subway or out on the street, particularly when they're older or uh, they don't speak English well, I try to take I try to look out for them. I mean, I've gone 2 hours out of my way to get people back to where they needed to be on the subway, um, because I was that concerned about them. Uh, so
No, you're
yeah.
right. It's all about being a considerate person.
Hmm.
But now, let me ask you, how does that reflect to the younger audience? This woke moment. People want to shove down people's throats. Barbie had a lot of backlash, but Barbie made a lot of movie. But let me just say, Barbie made a lot of money. It's a lot of movie, a lot of whatever. Barbie made a lot of Do you understand what I'm trying to say?
Right.
And so a lot of people are like, oh, I took my kids there. It's Barbie. I thought it was going to be a family film, and I didn't know what I was walking into. Now all the Disney films are coming out, and the TV shows and Power Rangers where they have, gay characters. And I mean, it's it's fine, it's fine you have it there because you want to have everyone. The problem is you don't want to shove it in people's faces and shove it down people's throats. And the other one, it's kind of like you don't, when we're growing up, you said, oh, do you want to be a king? You have to have a queen. Or you want to have a princess? You need a prince. And then fast forward a couple of years, and now it's like, oh, you can be a princess. You don't need a guy in your life. So it's kind of like a trend. But do you think it's kind of getting out of hand a little bit? Or do you think people
No,
just,
no. And when people use that language about shoving it down their throat, that's just saying, okay, that's how uncomfortable you are.
yeah.
It doesn't match your reality, um, but that doesn't mean it doesn't match someone else's. And the alternative to that is not telling the stories. One thing that I talk about a lot, um, is I discovered, well, let me step back. about 20 years ago, I took a DNA test because of some medical research I was part of. And this was a DNA test oriented towards genetic genealogy, understanding your family history. It came back and said, you're almost 1% African. I was like, what? Okay. On my mother's side, um, my maternal grandmother's oldest sister married into a Mormon family. Her kids were raised Mormon. They got very into the family history and their practice of baptizing the unbaptized, your ancestors, which caused a lot of problems in the extended family when I was young, when all that happened. But they were very extensive in getting into the family history. I'm like, there's no Africans over there, not at 1%, which would be like a fifth great grandparent. Not over there. So it has to be in my father's family. Well, my father was from a little coal mining town in Appalachian, Kentucky. His father, well, my father really, really tanned easily. My first partner used to joke that he thought my father was part South American because how dark he got. And I'm like, I don't think so. But his father was kind of the same way. My father's father, not so much. But I started looking through that family history, and these Philipps men, from my first great grandfather back to my third great grandfather, all married women who came from this family who were descended from the original German immigrants in Pennsylvania, who became Amish and Old Mennonites. Well, okay, that's not there. So let's look back further. Okay, here's this fourth great grandfather that at that time didn't quite understand. There was a lot of lore about his parents and his origin, and something about him being part Cherokee. Well, there was no sign of Native American ancestry, but it turned out to be his mother was African. His mother was, yeah. So.
No, I agree. I didn't mean to cut you off here, but we are
No,
going over
no.
time. But once we get 100 views, we can definitely do a part two. If I ever do
Sure.
any more interviews, but I will, a group interviews, and Marvin are welcome to be part of it. Last question. One thing I do want to say real fast, it's a funny joke. You mentioned your father's grandfathers, and at first I started to laugh at it because you reminded me of a joke from Spaceballs. I'm your father's mother's sister's cousin's roommate. What's that make us? Absolutely nothing.
Right.
I know it's a bad joke, but that's the first thing that popped in my head. But I do have a couple questions for you off the air. But wrapping up real fast, how can our fans and listeners get in touch with you?
I think you posted social. Best way is to find me out there on Instagram, Mayfield Philipps, Philipps, 1 L, 2 P's. That's the easiest way to find me.
No, absolutely. And all that will be in the description box. This will be played on all social medias. Our goal is to reach 100 more views. Definitely leave a comment. Here on the Keith Andrew Network, we talk about everything and everything as long as it's professional, and we always have a great time. Stay tuned for Off the Air. If you're watching this, go to Instagram because we're going to have a roundup question when we come back from this commercial break. We're wrapping up our interview segment. It was a real honor and privilege having you as a guest.
Thank you.
And until we meet again, catch you later. Thank you, and have a good night.